Good morning, dear students. In our today's video, we shall try to understand lesson number 4 of your history. And in this chapter, we shall be dealing with few points like we shall be trying to understand about the tribals, the Dikus, and the vision of a golden age. Let me tell you in a very short what is the meaning of these three. Tribal means the original inhabitants who generally used to live in the forest. Their life was directly connected or directly dependent on the forest or the forest products. Second one is Dikus. The term Diku, it means outsiders. Here outsiders means the British, the Hindu landlords, the Jamindars, the missionaries, they all are referred here as the Dikus. And the golden age means the particular time when these tribal people, they lived independently without any interference of these outsiders or the Dikus. Let's start. By the 19th century, tribal people in different parts of India were involved in a variety of activities. For earning our livelihoods, we depend on different types of economic activities. In the 19th century, before the arrival of the British, the tribal peoples, they were engaged in different types of activities. I have tried to show you here few activities. The first one is jhum cultivators. In our previous chapter, we already discussed about jhum cultivation. It is also known as the shifting cultivation. Even you can see in the picture shown here the system of jhum cultivation. Some of them practiced jhum or shifting cultivation. Jhum cultivation, it is also known as shifting cultivation. As the name suggests, shifting cultivation means they would cultivate crops in a particular place for some time. Once the crop is harvested, they would move to some other new place. They cut the tree tops and burned the vegetation to clear it for cultivation. In the process of jhum cultivation, the cultivators or the farmers or the tribal people, they would cut the tree tops and they would burn the vegetation. Whatever vegetation was there on the ground, it would be burnt, and the ash, they spread the ash to fertilize the soil. The ash obtained from burning the vegetation would be mixed up with the soil so that the fertility of the soil is increased. Once the crop was harvested, now crop is grown, the crop is harvested, they moved to another place, and again in that another place they would cut the vegetation, they would burn it, and they would cultivate the different crops. That's the meaning of jhum cultivators or jhum cultivation. The second type of activity where the tribal people were involved was some were hunters and gatherers. Some of the tribal groups, they practiced hunting as well as gathering different forest products. Some of the tribal groups practiced hunting or gathering food or other forest products. In ancient time, the people, they were mainly depended on either agriculture or hunting or gathering. They used to hunt the different animals. They used to go for collective hunting, means few family members, they joined together and they used to go for hunting, and whatever animals or birds they could hunt, they would distribute the meat among the families. And even some tribal groups, they used to gather different types of food or other forest products like the different types of herbs, fruits, flowers, or the different types of we can say like honey. These things they used to gather from the forest. For example, you can say the Khonds. You can see here the picture of the Khond community is given, or the Khond tribes. They were such a community who lived in the forest of Orissa. The Khond, they used to live in the forest of Orissa. So that's about hunters and gatherers. The third and the last one is here some herded animals. Herded animals means they used to keep the different types of animals for their livelihood. Many tribal groups lived by herding and rearing animals. If we take the examples, the Labadis was one tribe who used to live in Andhra Pradesh, and they were cattle herders. You can see in the picture, the Labadis tribe picture is shown here. They were the tribe of Andhra Pradesh who generally used to rear different types of cattle like cow, goat, these all. Another tribe who used to herd animal was Gadis. These Gadis, they were from Kulu. Even you can see in the picture, the Gadis, they were shepherds. Generally, they used to rear the sheep. Another one is Bakarwal. I think you have heard the name Bakarwal. It's one very famous tribe who herd mainly goat, and these bakarwals, as you can see in the picture, bakarwals, they are generally found in Kashmir. So these are the different tribal groups who used to herd animals. So I hope you have understood. I have taken here 3 activities where the tribal people are involved. One is jhum cultivation, one is hunting and food gathering, another one is herding or rearing animals. Now, how did colonial rule affect tribal lives? We have already discussed in our previous videos or our previous chapters that the British rule in India is known as the colonial period in our country, and during this colonial rule the Indian life was greatly affected. Now we are going to study how this colonial rule it affect the tribal lives. The first point, what happened to tribal chiefs? You know, among the tribal group there used to be one chief, and when the colonial rule came to our country or the British came to our country, the power of the tribal chiefs were changed. Let's see what is here. Before the arrival of the British, the tribal chiefs enjoyed certain economic as well as administrative powers. Before the British, the different tribal chiefs, they were independent among their particular tribe. They had some economic power as well as they had some administrative power. They could make their own rules and regulations. They were overall or you can say the most powerful one in their particular tribe. But under the British rule it changed. When the British came to India, the power of the tribal chiefs totally changed. They were given the permission to keep their land titles over some cluster of land, but they lost much of their economic power. They lost much of their power. They were forced to follow laws made by the British. As I already told you earlier, the tribal people, they used to live independently, not under the force of anybody. But when the when the British came, the British made the different laws, and the tribal chiefs as well as the other tribal people, they were forced to follow these laws which were made by the British. So we can easily understand here that because of the arrival of the British, the life of the tribal people got disturbed. Not only this, because of the arrival of the British, the life of the shifting cultivators were also badly affected. The British wanted the tribals to settle down. As we already got earlier, that the tribal people, they did not live in a particular place for a long time. They used to lead one nomadic life, but when the British came, they wanted all the tribal groups to settle down in a particular place. They introduced different types of land settlements, like they measured the land, defined the rights of each individual to that land, and fixed the revenue. The British, first of all, they measured the land, they fixed the land would belong to whom, and even they fixed the revenue that was supposed to be paid by the tribals to the British. Some were declared landowners, others tenants. Some of the tribal, they were declared as the owner of the land. At the same time, some others, they were declared as the tenants. Tenants means they could hire the land from the landowners. But it was not very successful. No doubt the British, they wanted to settle down the tribals, but that policy was not very much successful. The cultivators or the farmers or the tribals, they suffered lot of problems because the soil was dry, and they also suffered from the scarcity of water. And because of the dry soil and scarcity of water, their fields did not produce good yields, means they could not produce enough food, and that was the problem suffered by the cultivators. And that's the reason why the British, they allowed them to practice jhum cultivation in some parts of the forest. Now when the British understood about the problem, they allowed some of the tribal people or the groups to practice jhum cultivation in not all the parts, but in some parts of the forest. Well, the second last topic of this chapter that we are going to study now is forest laws and their impact. When the British came to India, they made different types of forest laws. And what were the impact of these forest laws on the life of the people? Let's see. The British government declared the forest as government property. When the British came, before the British, the forest was the property of the tribal people. But now, after the arrival of the British, they declared that forests are not public property, but that are government property. And why they did so? It was because they produced timber which they wanted. Timber was in a huge demand by the British or for the British, and this timber was produced by these forests. And to get the timber easily, the British government, they declared that forests are the government property. Even the people were not allowed to enter the forest. As you already got earlier, that the people, they cultivated, they practiced jung cultivation, they hunted animals, or they collect fruits or the other food products from the forest. Now they were stopped to enter the forest. So I hope you can understand what was the effect of the forest law on the life of the tribal people. They were not allowed to enter the forest, they were not allowed to practice jung cultivation, they were not allowed to hunt the animals, or even they were not allowed to collect the different fruits or the other food products from the forests. So their life was very badly affected. So they started to revolt, and because of this reason, the different tribal groups in different parts of the country, they started to revolt against the British government. For example, if we will take the revolt of Songram Sangma, he was one tribal leader. He revolted against the British in the year of 1906 in Assam. Another revolt was taken place, the Forest Satyagraha. I hope you have heard about this. The Forest Satyagraha, it was started in the 1930s in the central provinces. So these are the two revolts which were organized or which were taken place against the British because of their different types of forest laws. The last part of this chapter, we are going to discuss here about another person whose name was Virsa Munda. I hope you have heard the name of Virsa Munda. Even you can see here the picture of Virsa Munda. This Virsa Munda, he was born in the Munda tribes. Munda was one name of the tribe. Virsa was born in the mid 1870s, particular year we do not know. In the middle of the 1870s he was born, and he was born to a very poor family. Forced by poverty, his father had to move from place to place. As I told you that Virsa Munda, he was born to a poor family, and because of poverty, his father had to go from one place to another place in search of work. While growing, when Virsa Munda, he was growing up, he heard about the golden past of the Mundas. When Virsa Munda, he was growing up, he heard about the golden past. He heard about different tales or stories from his grandparents or from the other elder peoples about the golden past of the Mundas. What is the meaning of golden past? When they had been free from the oppression of the Dikus. I already told you that Dikus means the outsiders, and this golden past means the time when the tribal people or the Munda tribes, they used to live freely and independently. They were not under the pressure of the outsiders. In the year 1895, he urged his followers to recover their glorious past. Now, Virsa Munda, he grew up, and in the year of 1895, he asked his followers, or the other Munda people, he told them to recover their glorious past. That means they decided to drive away the Dikus. He urged the Mundas to give up drinking liquor. He asked all his fellow members to give up drinking liquor. Drinking liquor or drinking wine, it's not at all good. So he tried to make the people understand to stop drinking wine. He also asked the people to clean their villages and stop believing in witchcraft and sorcery. The meaning of witchcraft and sorcery means the different types of magical power. The uneducated people, at that time, the tribal people, they were not that much educated, and that's why they believed in different types of supernatural power as well as magical powers. So Virsa Munda, he asked his people to stop believing in all these things, and also he asked the people to be practical and to believe only the reasonable things. The Mundas, under the leadership of Virsa Munda, attacked the police stations, the churches, and raided the property of the moneylenders and zamindars. You should not misunderstand. Dikus, it does not mean only the British. Dikus means all the outsiders, including the British, the Hindu landlords, the Hindu moneylenders, the zamindars. They all were referred to as the Dikus, and that's why Virsa Munda, along with the other Mundas, they attacked the police stations of the British, they attacked the churches, and even they raided or they plundered the property of the moneylenders and the zamindars, because they all were destroying the tribal way of life. You already got the moneylenders. They used to give loan to the tribal people, but the amount of interest what they used to charge was very high, which affected the tribal life. We already got in our earlier chapters. They raised the white flag as a symbol of Virsa Raj. We can say white flag, it was a symbol of the Virsa movement or the Virsa Raj. Virsa was arrested in 1895. In the year of 1895, Virsa Munda, he was arrested by the British, but they could not keep him for a long time by the British, and released in the year of 1897. After 2 years, Virsa Munda was released. However, in the year of 1900 AD, Virsa Munda died of cholera. He was suffering from the disease cholera, and he died in the year of 1900 AD. And with his death, the movement or the Virsa movement faded out. And when Virsa Munda died, there was no other person to take his place, and that's why the Virsa movement was faded out, or it stopped. However, it taught the British about the tribal power. No doubt Virsa Munda died, the Virsa movement was faded out, but the British could now understand that it is not so easy to mobilize the tribal people, or to control or to dominate the tribal people. The British, they understood about the power of the tribal people. So that's about the chapter. I hope you have understand about this chapter. We have discussed about very few points. You read the chapter, go through the important points, and if there is any doubt, please get it cleared from me. Thank you very much.